So I'm being told that this is currently live, but there's a bit of a buffer here, so you'll have to bear with me. I promise I'll get started pretty soon. I'm just checking on my end to make sure everything is up and running before I do too much else. Yeah, so this looks like it's going, and I think we're all set. So there's a bit of a lag here. I can't figure out really how to get around the lag, so I apologize for that. Procedurally, like what are the things that you should probably have available for you right now? There's some links down below in the info field for the stream. And so you can click on those and you can get access to them. And even if you get here late or you get here another time and you're watching this, those links aren't going to go away. So feel free to use those in order to help as much as you might need. My name is Dave, and I am one of a series of teachers who are just volunteering to offer lessons for a thing that we call Project Albatross, which it's a work in progress, shall we say. And frankly, parts of it may very well wind up being more useful than other parts or not useful at all. So, I mean, either way you go, that's totally fine. I'm going to be kind of smart here, and I'm going to put this on to Twitter just in case people want it. So that's going to be fun for everybody here to watch. So let me go and do that right now. I know this is captivating stuff, but that's pretty much the way it is. If you are here, maybe what you would like is just to go and load that document so we can take a look at what we're going to be doing today. And again, I do have access to the live chat. So, pardon me, on YouTube. So if that's useful for you, then I think that that's definitely a thing to do, right? Let me just double check here in my age of neuroses and make sure I'm not talking mutedly, and I'm not. And so we'll put something out on Twitter like live now or here we go. All right. Cool deal. So that's pretty much it. Oh, sorry, I should turn myself off. Let me mute myself. So that's all working and fantastic. Yay. All right. So thank you for bearing with me. I do apologize, but it was just the nature of the beast. So like I said, we're kind of building out this Project Albatross on for biology learners. And so I thought maybe I would just start by giving an overview of that because I feel like that's probably useful. So let me use my little thinger here and just share my screen out. Yeah, so here it is, right? Project Albatross, and so you can get there by going to www.projectalbatross.org, and you can get resources here if you want them. So you can get things like these are the lesson schedules over here. So if you're middle school life science, you want something there, right? General high school bio, AP bio, IP bio, various learning resources. So like curated collections of those things, which again, helpful for you, and they mirror each level. And then also like asynchronous forum stuff. So that may be useful for you too, because you may want help when there's not a lesson scheduled, or maybe you don't have an urgent need. And if that's the case, then we've got two different things going on there. So the first is that over at the Homework Help subreddit, which is a super useful place to go, they've been very kind and have offered to kind of host our forum needs, and there'll be more eyes on it. And what's nice about Homework Help is that you can get other help there too. You can get help on any subject as long as you post it there. Homework Help also runs a Discord chat server, and so if you're interested in getting access through to like Discord chat for a little bit more real-time kinds of structures over text, then that's a good place to go as well. I had mentioned the schedules, and they're right up here. So teachers will add and take off over time. Some teachers got lives, and all of us have a lot of stuff going on, as I'm sure you do as well right now. And so sometimes teachers might think that they're going to teach a lesson, and then they might not, or they might need to make a change. And so they're just keeping track of it. So today's really like the first day of this, right? And so you can see like Patty Richardson was going to do photosynthesis down here, and she waited till 3:13 and nobody showed. So, and that's fine, right? She's not angry about it, certainly. But you know, it's definitely a fluid thing. So that's a problem with the lesson schedule. And I do know we had to pick a time. I myself am in Singapore. It's 5:04 in the morning right now. But we had to pick a time like just to set this up initially. And so it was Eastern Standard Time. And so I've selfishly taken the next hour if necessary, but I don't know if it'll be necessary at all. If you want to get in touch with me right now for the purpose of this, you're watching it on YouTube, and so use the live chat, right? Send it into the live chat. I'll get it there, and we can talk about things through there as we go. All right, so that's pretty much that aspect of the project. And I'm going to just, while we're here, let's take a look at some other things. So you've gotten a link to this folder. It's linked down below, the information for the video. And this is just my folder, right? And so here, what we have is this document lesson, and I'll just keep using this document. I'll run it as a rolling agenda. So I'll put the more recent stuff up at the top and just keep going from there. And so I didn't get a lot of like topic suggestions before right now. So I figured we would just talk about the exam itself, because this is AP Bio level. And so we'll just talk about what's going on there with the exam. So I'm going to load this document here to look at. I don't know what this looks like on the Project Albatross, or on the YouTube end. Are you just seeing my screen, or are you seeing my screen and me? Hard to know what Zoom does. Let me dare to click play for a quick second and see what's up here. We are. I'm going to be kind of smart here, and I'm going to put this on to Twitter just in case. All right, so I'm a bit delayed on myself here. Let's see. Let me just double check here in my agent. Yes, I see what. Oh, that's cool. So I'm like on the top. You live, you learn. You learn by doing, right? So that's neat. All right. So anyway, thank you. So that's good. So you can see my face, which makes me quite happy about that. So anyway, we're gonna look at a couple of things here today. The first is that we're gonna look at this doc that I made to just outline some changes to the AP exam. And then if there is an audience at that point, I'll answer any questions. And if you have any questions, go right ahead and let me know about it. So let's go ahead and take a look at this document here, the one that outlines the changes to the AP exam, and we'll see what's going on here. Hey, I see Sue Phillips in the chat, and I just wanted to let her know that I'm glad she could see both. Just as a reminder, this is like 30 seconds delayed, so I need to remember that too, right? So I'll try to keep that in my head also. So let's take a look at this document here. What's the best way to do it? I'm just gonna make it a little bit bigger. I'll make the little organization thing go aside. I thought it would be a good idea to kind of take a moment and just talk about the changes to the AP exam. This is all publicly available information. There's nothing secret on this document. It's just there for people to be able to use. So I made this here, and it's available. You can use it, share it, send it to your teacher, whatever you want. Teachers, if you're here, send them to your students. And so this is the basic point of this. It just goes through the changes. I just took a bunch of stuff from a bunch of different places and I'll put it in one big place. So you're probably aware that the AP exam this year is 2 free response questions instead of the normal 60 multiple choice and then 6 free response questions. It's just 2 free response questions. And instead of it being 3 hours long, it's going to be 45 minutes long with submission times, etc. I think we can get rid of that part of this document right here. What's important also is that it's online only. So you're only going to be able to take it on a computer or take pictures of your work and then upload it onto a computer. The College Board is going to put out more guidance about this. The College Board has indicated that you're going to have 25 minutes to read and respond to question 1, and then 5 minutes to upload your response, and then another 15 minutes to respond to question 2, and another 5 minutes to upload your response. So I think from time to start until time when you're finished and you're uploading your second question, that's that 45 minutes. But don't worry too much about the 45-minute deal. We can make this 50 if we want, right? Maybe that's confusing. I don't know. Let's go back. Let's make it 40 minutes and say that we have 10 and 2 5-minute uploads. That's probably better. Makes a little bit more sense. Cool. And then, of course, there's a couple of other things here too, right? Once you have responded to question 1 and it's been submitted, you cannot go back. So you can't, once it's done, it's done. Obviously, the College Board has all sorts of new considerations this year in terms of honesty, etc. So they're going to probably keep that pretty locked down. They've also said that they have various tools for dealing with this. They won't even talk about what they are. They're super secret. So as a result, keep that in mind. One FRQ on the test, the big one, is going to be referred to as what's usually question 1 on the normal exam, and the other one is question 4, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. And then, due to the nature, of course, of the global situation, the College Board is only going to assess material within the first 6 of the 8 units that are in its curriculum and exam description. And this document actually has that link down below, and I'll be pulling a lot from that. And so there are your units, right? Chemistry of life, cell structure and function, cellular energetics, cell communication and cell cycle, heredity, gene expression and regulation. And the 2 that aren't going to be assessed within the structure of the course of this exam are natural selection and ecology, which personally I think is unfortunate, but such is life. And so if you're my student, we do these things in our units 2 through 6. So the notes there for that. Hey, I mean, I wrote the document, right? So let's talk about these questions. The first one is FRQ 1. And so that's going to be 25 minutes with a 5-minute period to upload and submit responses. That's going to be weighted at 65% of the overall determination of your score for the exam. And that's what that question from the curriculum and exam description tells us a lot about it. So it's what's called the interpreting and evaluating experimental results question. And that's going to be somewhere between 8 and 10 points. That prevents students with an authentic scenario accompanied by data in a table or maybe a graph. The question is going to assess your ability to do the following in 4 parts. So there's going to be 4 parts on that question. In part A, which is anywhere from 1 to 2 points, you're going to describe and explain a biological concept, a process, or a model, so something from the course. You're going to have to talk about maybe what it looks like if it's a structure, right? Or what it does if it's a process, right? Describe and explain. These words have specific meanings. We'll talk about that too a little bit later on. Then in part B, you're going to be given some sort of experiment, and you're going to need to identify different experimental design procedures. It could be an actual experiment. It could be set up as you're going to do this particular experiment. Either way, right? And then you're going to have to analyze data in part C, and then you're going to have to make and justify predictions about what you would expect to see in some new situation. Got a question here that the kids will be allowed to upload the last question after 45 minutes have passed, and that's a totally valid question. I've just taken what I've gotten here right off of the College Board's website explaining the information. This is a direct quote here, and so we'll look at it together. I've also linked it there on the document, but students will have 25 minutes to read and respond to question 1, and then 5 minutes to upload their response. So that sounds to me like it takes, it's 30 minutes at that point. After uploading the response to question 1, students will have 15 minutes to respond to question 2, and then another 5 minutes to upload their response. I think once a student has indicated that they're, I don't even want to say that out loud because I don't have 100% confirmation, but I would figure that it would probably be a situation where a student would upload their response. They would have a 5-minute window in which to do that. And as soon as that's done, I can't see why the computer won't then just cue them to take the next question. But maybe they want to keep the times rigorous, who knows? But so anyway, that's why I've changed it to 40 minutes with 2 5-minute uploads, right? We can maybe go ahead to this again in between question 1 and question 2. Yeah, cool. So I hope that helps to Sue, who put that in the comments. So anyway, that's free response question 1. If we look at free response question 4, now that's going to be considerably shorter, and you're going to have 15 minutes to write it, but it's not anywhere near as long in terms of what you have to write, and it doesn't count as much. It's 35% of the overall determination. And so that's conceptual analysis. And that's a 4-point question that's going to present students with an authentic scenario describing a biological phenomenon with disruption. So they're going to give you something from the course, and they're going to break it, right? Which is super fun. And then they're going to see how well you do with this. So you're first going to have to describe the concept or the process. You're going to have to explain the concept or the process, or maybe allied concepts or processes. You may have to describe one and explain another that are close, sort of cognitively close in the way we think about stuff. And then you're going to need to predict the causes or effects of a change in a biological system. So they're going to break this or do something to it. It may not break it, right? They may they're going to change it in some way. And then you're going to have to justify your predictions as a result. So those are the two questions, right? And we have some idea of the content that this is going to be on. And so that's pretty much the way that this works. I want to take a moment and just talk about these terms, what the curriculum and exam description calls task verbs. And that document is linked down here on this handout. You can go to that whole document if you want. It's written for teachers, but it's pretty readable. I would say any AP biology student can read it. There's parts of it that you may not want to read, but it's definitely pretty readable. I've taken a lot of this just straight from it, and I'm sure you're making sense of this, so you can definitely deal with this. Yeah, but these are what are called the task verbs, and they give you a whole list of these. I've only pulled the ones that are specifically mentioned in the prompts from the descriptions of the two questions. And so if you want to describe or explain, a lot of people think about these two things the same way. I also, full disclosure, tend to think about them as being very, very similar, right? If you're describing something, the College Board is saying that you're providing the relevant characteristics. So you're talking about relevant aspects of a particular thing. And if you're explaining it, you're giving some sort of causal connection. So you're explaining how or why something occurs using evidence and reasoning in order to support or qualify your claim. So you're going to make a claim about how something happens and then give some evidence and some reasoning about how that works. And so then they go on and say explaining how something happens typically requires explaining the relationship or the process or the pattern or maybe where it's located or the situation, whatever. Explaining why something happens typically requires an analysis of motivations or reasons, right, for the relationship, process, pattern, and so on. So hopefully that helps you understand the difference between describing and explaining, because if we go back to question 4 in part A, you're going to have to describe it, and in part B, you're going to explain it, right? Identify. So in identify, you're going to indicate or provide information about a specific topic without elaboration or explanation. So you just be like, bah, right? It's this thing. Yeah, you don't have to elaborate or explain at that point. You're going to need to predict or make a prediction. So for that, you're obviously going to prognosticate, right? You're going to use the information at your hands and you're going to forecast what would happen, right? Predict the causes or effects of a change in or a disruption to one or more components of a relationship, pattern, process, or system. Peggy's got a note here. Could we give some examples of that in your opinion might be used for question 4? Yeah, this is a good question, Peggy, and we'll come back to it in a second. Let me just finish up this discussion of the whatever they're called, the task verbs, and we'll go from there. And then in justify, right? So in justify, you're going to need to provide evidence to support, qualify, or defend a claim, and provide reasoning to explain how that evidence supports or qualifies the claim. So let's pause there and let's talk about Peggy's question first. Could you give an example that in your opinion might be used for question 4? So if we go back to all of our units, remember in question 4, right, we're going to be given an authentic scenario describing a biological phenomenon and a disruption. So let's take a look here and see what that looks like. So if we take a look at this, we've got chemistry of life, cell structure and function, cellular energetics, cell communication, cell cycle, heredity, gene expression, and regulation. So that's these things here, right? I'll go ahead and make those bold. So if we think about those units, what are some of the processes from those units? Well, certainly energetic processes are huge there, right? Respiration, photosynthesis, all those steps of respiration and photosynthesis in different contexts. Looking at chemistry of life, I guess you could talk about catabolism and anabolism processes, building proteins, things of that sort, which of course feed into genetics as well. So those seem like pretty ripe veins for that. Cell communication and cell cycle, so that's signal transduction, right? That's cell division. That's mitosis, that's meiosis. That of course kicks into heredity as well in terms of inheritance, various mechanisms of inheritance, processes for that. We could talk about particular situations related to inheritance situation, related to the inheritance of particular traits or conditions. Gene expression regulation, of course, that's talking about transcription and translation and all the various regulatory processes that happen in there as well. So all of those seem like rich veins to get at. I'm probably forgetting a few. I see a bunch of teachers in the chat. Maybe if teachers have other thoughts that I haven't mentioned, if they want to throw them in the chat to me or just for everybody, that would be really, really useful. Right on. So then I went through and I took the science practice language from the curriculum and exam description. Hopefully this is not your first time hearing this term science practices if you're a student in this course, or for that matter, a teacher in this course. But the science practices, there's 6 of them. And the curriculum and exam description gives us specific information about those science practices for questions 1 and question 4. And so I just pulled the ones where question 1 or question 4 are mentioned. I did some editing in here because sometimes you know, if it's like, if you look at concept explanation number 1 and they give you these things here that you should be able to do, then they say free response questions 1 and 4 and some other ones, and we didn't need that here, right? So concept explanation, yeah, here's what they want you to do. Describe biological concepts and processes, explain them, and explain them in applied context. So that gives us some more information about what might be useful here. I see that the inimitable Mr. Kuhn is ringing in with the chat saying classic disruption examples might include enzyme inhibition in a pathway, or perhaps what would happen if an inner mitochondrial membrane was punctured. I think that those are both really good. I would say there's yeah, straight down the line, as is Mr. Kuhn's way. If we look at science practice number 3, questions and methods, and if you look at, if we go back here, right, we can expect 1 to 2 points on science practice 1 in question 1 and in question 4. So that's a big deal. Concept explanation is really pretty central for this exam, more broadly, but also this year's version. And if we look at questions and methods, we can identify or pose a testable question based on an observation, data, or a model. Errant misaligned thing there. State the null and alternative hypothesis and predict the results of the experiment, and identify experimental procedures that are aligned. You guys can read this. I'm not going to read this to you particularly, but you can see it all there. And we can see that free response question 1 focused on science practice 3 with approximately half of the points for the question assessing that particular practice. So that tells you that that's going to be a big deal on question number 1. If we look at science practice 4, representing and describing data, constructing a graph and interpreting graphs. Remember, you won't necessarily be asked to construct a graph. And I could see how that may be difficult in this particular year's exam. I have no inside information on that, but it just seems like an extra layer of complexity. So maybe you're just interpreting, but it's the way it works here, right? Free response question 1 also assesses this practice in 1 or 2 points. Yeah. If we look at statistical tests and data analysis, that's going to be performing various mathematical calculations, using confidence intervals, performing chi-square, using data to evaluate a hypothesis or a prediction. That's going to show up free response question 1, and it may show up there, but yeah. And then we have question 6 here. Argumentation, make a claim, support a claim with evidence, give us some reasoning. That's foundational to the way we think about things in this course. Explain the relationship between experimental results and larger concepts, processes, or theories, and then predict the changes or effects of a change in or disruption to 1 or more components. So there we see clear connections to question 4 and question 1 as well. So I thought that might be useful, and so I figured I would break that out for us. We've got some other things on this document as well. We've got practice items from prior years. So every year until this year, the College Board has put a set of essays that from the exam, it's released them several days afterwards for teachers to see, and they're public documents. All right. Now, College Board keeps their copyrights on those documents. They certainly keep their copyright on the curriculum exam description, but they're public on the website of the College Board. And so this is a tricky thing, right? Because the questions are written for a different exam. This year's exam is the first exam that's been rigorously aligned to this new curriculum and exam description. And so all of those old questions are not rigorously aligned to that. But they're certainly AP level essay questions, and there are many parts of those questions that are useful in helping you prepare to write these essays. So with that in mind, I've gone through that list of questions and all the ones that are publicly available. And I've listed the ones that are correlating to question 1 and question 4 below. I really want to talk quickly about these important things to keep in mind when looking at the list. So first, none of these items are perfectly aligned to the new test. It says that up above, right? And it says that here again, because that's a really important thing to keep in your head. Obviously, also, None of the specific experimental situations or prompts will be repeated on this year's exam. So that's important to understand too. It'd be stupid to like put in your head some detailed experimental procedure that you read about in this particular question, because they're going to give you a different experimental procedure. So definitely keep that in your head. That said, if it would be unwise, like if you answer a question about genetics in this practice set, like don't be like, oh, they asked genetics, we're not going to ask that again. That's not what we're saying at all. We're just saying that the specific details of the context here are different, and so as a result, you need to just kind of keep that in your head. And so these items are really useful to practice. Just practice essay writing, which is a huge skill for this test particularly. To review allied content, to practice all of those sub skills from above and give you context for that. And viewing, right, and just like it says again here, like viewing any of the below as suggestive of any topic or specific skill, context, or other component is the height of folly. And we'll go ahead and make that bold as well. And maybe we'll even italicize that one. Right on. And so, reader beware, right? And go back and read this section again, just to make sure that you really understand what I'm saying there before we go through this. So the link is up above. And when you go to that link, you're going to get a bunch of different essay questions. I can show you what that looks like. We'll pull that up here. Oftentimes it takes a website a bit of a while to load when we're like streaming through Zoom, I found, so we'll let that go. And then what we have here are the questions that I thought were pretty closely aligned. So like 2012 question 2 would be close to question 1, 2013 question 1, you can read all of those there. For question 4, I thought that these items were particularly well aligned. Now, again, you look at these, you may see a particular section that deals with evolution or ecology, but there won't be all evolution or all ecology. I would have cut those out, yeah? So if you go to the website that's linked above, these are the past exam questions. And so like if we go to 2012, right, we can click this document and we'll load that particular one, 2012 question 2. So if we go here to 2012 question 2, we can scroll down here to question 2, and here is a question. An agricultural biologist was evaluating 2 newly developed varieties of wheat as potential crops, germinating on moist paper towels at 20 degrees Celsius for 48 hours. Oxygen consumption is measured. Calculate the rates of oxygen consumption, show your work. Explain the relationship between metabolism and oxygen consumption. Discuss the effect of temperature on metabolism. And then they give you a second experiment. They're treating it with a particular chemical. Predict the most likely effect of the chemical on metabolism, oxygen consumption, and explain your prediction. That's really close to a lot of the things that you're being asked to do, both in question 1 and in question 4. So that seemed like one that would fit the bill for this. Of course, the website also then has scoring guidelines and sample responses. And so you can read both how to grade it yourself, and you can also look at other students who wrote it and see what they did well. So those are some items that we thought might be useful for you. And let me stop one second. So there's a bit of a lag, as we all know. If you have other questions, we're going to transition out of this pretty quickly. So if you have other questions that you want me to address, please put them into the chat so I can see them. I'm going to go on and talk for a little bit, but then I'll look at the chat and we'll go through anything that is there. So if we're looking at this, other public review resources. So to help with preparing for the exam this year, the following inexhaustive list of resources is also provided in no particular order. So these are just new resources. I see somebody in the chat who has some great resources of his own. I didn't put them here only because they are actually linked in some other things as well. And I think he's pretty well known. But if we look here at like Project Albatross Distance Learning Biology Project, so that's a project that myself and some other teachers are getting going on. And of course, you're here because of that, right? And we went through that at length, but all that resource collection has that all going on, right? I linked again to the homework help subreddit in the Discord chat. Those folks are doing us a real solid by kind of handling all the forum and chat-based communication for Project Albatross. And of course, homework help is great for other things too. If you're a student, you can get help on literally any topic. That's why it's called homework help. So that seemed like an easy win for everybody. There are some quality AP Bio teachers in the US who are running a schedule of their own YouTube sessions, much like this one. So feel free to take advantage of those as well. There's a whole list of them here. I think I linked to, I don't know what I linked to here, but that'll get you to wherever it is you need to go. And then, of course, the College Board has official review YouTube videos that are being put out by two AP Biology teachers, Ms. Pfizer and Ms. Kate. And they put those up according to the College Board schedule. The College Board is offering review YouTube videos for every topic, for every course this year. So that's pretty much that in terms of what is available for you. So I thought this would be a useful kind of first lesson here in this little project that we're handling. I hope it was useful for anybody who checked in. I don't see too many questions in the chat, and so I'll give it another moment while I'm winding down. But if I don't see that, let's just talk about sort of going forward kind of deal. Let me stop share here. And so first just say, hey, thanks so much for coming by. Thanks for listening. We very much want Project Albatross to be as useful for you as possible. And here I'm talking specifically to students, not so much to parents, but not so much to teachers. Parents, sure, let me know, but not so much to teachers. But we definitely want it to be useful for students. So if you're a student out there, you see this either live or you see it via watching it after it's been recorded, please feel free to get in touch with us on the website or in the homework help subreddit or on the Discord chat and let us know how we can help you out. Yeah, what would be the best ways for us to give you lessons, to deliver lessons for you, and all of the things that might help. Like if you want topics, feel free to get in touch. We can put you in touch with the teachers who are on the schedule and be like, hey, this kid has said that they really want this particular topic, and so we have that kind of flexibility. And so if you are interested in taking advantage of that flexibility, we would love to offer it to you. A couple of other notes: if you are a New York State-based living environment student, you should be aware, you've probably seen it, but it is now widely understood, it's on the news, that New York State has canceled the June Regents exams because of the crisis. So that's good news for you, though we would hope you still keep coming back even if you're not taking a Regents exam, but glad to hear that that's happening. And the only other thing that I'll say here at the end is just to please, oh, we got a note here, 2 things saved my life. Oh, that's, oh yeah, well, that's very nice. So thanks, Sue. So just one last note here. This is a crazy, crazy time to be a student. It's certainly a crazy time to be a teacher. It's a crazy time to be a student. And so it's really important, I think, that we all take a moment and just realize that there are more important things in our lives right now than being a student. So it's good on you for putting in your effort and trying your best here. And everybody's going to help you do that as much as possible for as long as we need to, right? That's why you have adults and teachers in your lives who care about you deeply, but it's also really important to take time for yourselves, make sure that you understand that this is unprecedented circumstances, and you're allowed to respond to that and to feel that in whatever way you need to. And so, if you ever need anything in that regard as well, feel free to get in touch with any of us on the Project Albatross website as well. We're only doing this really because we care about about you and the students more broadly. All right, so I'm going to go, but I'll be back next week. And if you want to get in touch between now and then, I'll leave some contact information down below the video, and you can just get in touch through any of those mechanisms as well. If you have specific topics or specific needs, that would be great if you want to let me know beforehand, and then I can just make sure that I address those things next time. All right, thanks a lot. I really appreciate it, and thanks to any of my friends in the chat, and have a great day.